Welcome to Keep On Living, and my name is David Knight. If you remember, the last episode we talked about being awake. What is it like to be awake, to be aware in your body? What it's like to drop down from your head and into your body and begin to feel again. Well, today we're going to talk about intention, which to me is the next steps that need to be taken before you can really begin to do anything. It's like you have to become awake. You have to have an intention and then a belief and then take actions and all these different things, right? And we're going to cover all those things. But right now we're going to cover intention. And I think my experience and my definition of intention is probably a little bit off the beaten path from most of the folks out there in the health and wellness world. All right. And we're going to jump into all of that in a few minutes. But before we do, I want to remind you, you can go to the website, keeponliving.org, and there you'll find more episodes. You'll find some resources. You can also connect with me there through email as well. And also with my music, there's a whole bunch of, well, not a whole bunch of, I'm still adding more stuff to it, but there's a lot of meditative music, just groove music, just stuff to make you feel good, just good, solid background music in your life, or meditative music as well. And there you can also click and join me on the Insight Timer app, where there's a whole bunch of stuff going on there. All right. But today we're going to jump into intentions. A little bit of a sidetrack from regular intentions, but let's just get started with that right now. Here we go. Intentions. So intentions. What have you been taught about when it comes to intentions? You've probably been taught to think, well, it's my intention to ride my bike today. And I'm going to focus on that. It's my intention. It's my intention to drive across town today and go to the mall and pick up some stuff and hang out with a friend of mine. These are all intentions. It's my good intentions to spend time with my family and with my loved ones and with friends and stuff. And those are my intentions. And that's good. And I know so many people have always said to me over the last several years as I continue to heal, well, Dave, set your intention. Set your intention on something. And I said, okay, fine. But when I began to page back about setting my intention on something, I found it difficult. You see, once I broke out of my trauma response, once I broke out of decades of being in trauma from CPTSD, I was empty inside. I was like this shell. And I always heard people say, oh, I was like an empty shell. And I would say back in the days when I thought I was feeling good, I would say, empty shell, what the hell does that mean? You were empty shell? Nah, man, you got a heart, liver, kidney, you got stuff going on in your body. You ain't empty. I was so naive and so clueless about what they were actually saying. They were saying that emotionally, they were such an empty shell that they just felt like hollow, empty, just blah, and that was it. Once I had my trauma release, I understood that phrase very, very well. In fact, I was that so-called empty shell, I would say, from November of 2022, probably until June, July, maybe August of 2023, right? And so people say, well, set your intention, set your intention. I didn't know how to set an intention for anything. I just really didn't. I was pretty much clueless about that. What I came to find out is that once you are aware and once you are awake and you've moved some negative energy and some trauma out of the body, quite often, at least it was my scenario, you don't know what's going on because you don't really have any feelings, because for the most part, your feelings and who you thought you were and all that happened in your life, all those events that happened and everything that happened to you, all the pain and anger and rage and grief that you went through, all that, if you have a really good trauma release, all that was ripped out, was removed. All of that energy was removed out of the body. And so you're kind of left with all these thoughts and memories of how life once was and how angry you once were, if you knew you were angry. I didn't know I was angry. And so, what are you setting an intention on at that point? People say, Dave, what's your intention? What's the next move? I don't know. I have no idea. I was still in shock because I remember just sitting in my chair and spinning around saying, I'm not mad anymore. I'm not mad anymore. But wait, I didn't know I was mad, but I'm not mad anymore. But I didn't know I was mad, but I'm not mad anymore. I was in such shock with what had just happened to me that for weeks and months, I was just telling people, I didn't know I was mad. I didn't know I was so angry. I didn't know I was still grieving the death of my brother. I didn't know I was still angry at my bandmates for breaking up the band and walking away from the band and all of this stuff. I didn't know I was still angry at my ex-wife for walking out and taking the kids. I didn't know. I thought I was just this sad dude, right? I was just sad about some of the events that happened in my life and some of the stuff. I didn't know that I was so deeply in and so deeply gripped with all of these things. So, and I didn't know I was so enraged and so hurt and so angry at everything, right? So when it all broke, I was in shock of just like, I'm not mad anymore, but I didn't know I was mad. I'm not mad anymore, but I didn't know I was mad. So when people were telling me, just go ahead, and set some intentions now, you broke this trauma thing, and you're feeling better, you're not angry, not mad anymore, go ahead, man, move ahead and make an intention and fix yourself and move forward and move ahead and get on your journey and this, and that. And I was just in this place of like, nah, because I don't know. I don't know what to do. How am I going to set an intention if I pretty much don't know what the hell happened to me? I'm trying to figure that out. So I really couldn't move ahead. I couldn't just say, let's move forward. So what I had to find out first, before I could move forward into anything and do anything, I had to get back in touch with me. I had to try and feel me because I wasn't feeling anything. Because feelings, emotions, all those things that make us this type of human being, emotional feelings, physical feelings, all those things had been pretty much taken out of me. I could feel certain things from day to day and all that kind of stuff, but I wanted to make sure that I was kind of feeling safe within myself, within my body. So setting an intention was not on my priority list. Though there were people, including my wife, saying, nah, babe, just go ahead and set your intention what you want to do. And I'm like, I don't know. I can't because I'm hollow inside. And I was still going through a release process. Like after the whole trauma thing happened, I was still going through a release process where at any moment, at any given moment, I would just bust out crying. Whether I was in public, whether I was in my studio working on a song, I'd be in the car driving, listening to music. One song that got me big time was Home by Stephanie Mills from The Wiz. Man, when that song came on, the floodgates just started because that song was so visceral to me as a child growing up back in the 70s and having seen the play. And my brother was there with the play. My brother who died was there with us with the play. And I remember seeing Stephanie on stage. And my childhood memories I have very fond childhood memories, even though much of my initial trauma and stuff started in my childhood and in the family home, right? So I'm trying to navigate all of these things. I'm trying to put all of these things together at the end of the day. And it was just like, no, I can't set an intention. I don't know what all you intention people are talking about because I have no feelings. I can't fix myself. Only thing I knew deep inside was like, okay, everything was ripped out. And I know the happy-go-lucky Dave is still in there somewhere. And how can I now begin to make and create and mold a new character and personality for myself and way of life for myself, and do something on that level. That's kind of like all I really knew. And I mean, people were telling me, like my daughter would even ask me, well, Daddy, what am I don't know, because I was this empty shell. So I realized that the trick, if you want to call it a trick. For me, what it was is I had to have a period of time where I was just being. You've heard the phrase before, human doings, but we're really human beings. And what does being mean? It just means just be. Just be human. I'm not trying to heal right now. I'm not setting any intentions right now. I'm not setting any intentions with goals right now. None of that. Because I don't know what just happened to me. I don't know how I feel. I don't feel much of anything. I literally felt hollow inside. It was this duality of feeling hollow inside, but the memories of how I did feel, which was anger, grief, rage, sorrow. That's how I was feeling, but that was removed. And so I would just sit around and talk to people and just say, I didn't know I was angry. I didn't know I was mad. I didn't know. And to this day, every now and then I'm talking to people about my story. I'm like, I had no clue. I was angry, enraged, traumatized, and all this I had no clue. So for me, it was a very natural thing to just be. I always liked, prior to, prior to all the trauma release and stuff, I always liked the idea of just being, right? And so I was doing that a lot before the whole trauma release happened. I spent time just being. I would come in here in this room and I would just sit on the couch, in the living room, no television, no nothing. And I said this in the awareness video, and just sitting here and stare at the wall, hour and a half, just being, not knowing that that was taking me on the path of the trauma release, right? Getting in touch with myself. So I thought to myself, let's not set an intention. Let's not set any goals. Let's not do that. Let's just be. Let's just be for a minute. And let's just let's just try and feel what I'm feeling, right? Let's just try and feel some of what I'm feeling and try to make sense day to day of what I'm going through. So after trauma release, all I did was live, just being, just living, getting up, doing the work thing, doing my music, recording, working on back in the day podcast episodes, working on new music, writing, hanging out with family as much as I could because my driving was still limited, all that kind of stuff. I was just being, and at that same time, there was so much, boy, there was so much emotional stuff coming up. Just deep, gut-wrenching, emotional stuff. Just deep, deep, deep within, crying and feeling. And that went on for probably about a good 5, maybe 6 months. And all the things that I had not cried about, grieved about, or got angry for, that when I should have gotten, like when my band broke up, I should have gotten angry. I should have been pissed and angry, but I wasn't. I was just like, okay, well, that's their choice. It is what it is. Nothing I can do about it. Let's pick up and move forward. No, should have never done that. I should have taken a moment and said, yo, fuck the motherfuckers, man, that fuck with my fucking dream, and we're doing all this stuff, and what the hell, and, didn't do any of that. I was very cool, calm, collected, Dave, and okay, and Tracy, and I just kind of moved forward. I got some more band members, put a new chase together, and moved on from there. Huge mistake. So all that was coming up during that period. So I was in no condition to set an intention. And I guess some people who listen to this, and some folks out there who were really more versed in healing and stuff like that than what I am, they might say, well, you should have set an intention. Maybe I should have. I don't know. I can't say. And this is why I like to say, I'm not that coach. I'm not that guru. I'm not that teacher. I'm not that professor, because I'm just a human being who has had 50 years of being in the dark and not knowing I was in the freaking dark, and I've come out of this darkness. I've come out of this pain, and I've gone through hell during that period, and I want to share that with you. So maybe I should have set some type of an intention during that period from September of 2022 until July, August of 2023. But quite frankly, I couldn't, because I was having such a major setback after the trauma release. I was having intrusive thoughts. I was having illusions going on, all kind of stuff, you know. So I just took a position of just being and just living and taking a breath and just kind of going through life. And that breath I just took right then was something I never did ever in my life prior to trauma release and prior to healing. Just taking a moment to just do that. Just take that breath. Just, man, that feels so good to just do that now. And I say that because I didn't feel anything for a long time. And I'm going to sidetrack just for a little bit, and I'm going to come back into intentions. I didn't feel anything for a long time. When I was at the height of my trauma and the height of my pain, I would refer to myself as being emotionally constipated, because all my emotions in the spring and summer of 2022 was up to here, feeling like this. I mean, really feeling like this. So you couldn't see it on my face and my body, but how I felt inside is how I felt. But nothing was coming out, right? I wasn't feeling anything. My wife would laugh because at 17 degrees in January, February, or 5 or 10 degrees below zero, I'd walk outside with a t-shirt on and a hoodie, and put the hoodie on and walk to the car and let's go. Babe, you not cold? Nah, I'm fine. I mean, for real, like when there are going to be episodes that my wife is going to be on, and when we get to the Q&A part, ask that question, she's going to laugh like hell. And I did that for years. Even before I met her with my kids, I was doing that for years. And my mother said to me once back in 95, 96, David, you're not cold? I'm like, no, I had on one of my dad's old quilted big shirts. You're not cold, Dave? Nah, Mom, I'm great. That's how numb I was. That's how physically numb I was. So after that trauma release, my body began to kind of shake and move and come alive, and more crying and more releasing and more pounding of the desk and getting out more of the anger and more of the grief and the sadness and stuff. And I still go through that now, as recently as last week. And this is April 29th, 2025, for those who really want to know the dates like I do. This is April 29th, 2025. I just went through it twice last week. Once again, around my brother was one event, and how it's hampering my driving, and also eating out in public. I swallowed a fishbone at the age of 8, 9 years old, and the effect that has now had on me, and how that has affected my PTSD and everything that's been going on. So it's been, to use one of today's phrases, it's been a hot mess for the kid, and people are kind of, well, I guess at this point, I'm kind of amazed how I guess how I didn't go off the deep end. As my therapist told me, so many people go off the deep end with things that I've been through, and I've been through a lot of different things, not just one or two like the average person. I've been through from age 8, 9 up until I was 30 years old. Anyway, so let's come back for a minute. I wasn't trying to fix anything. You like the horns? Welcome to Manhattan, everybody. For those of you in the other countries, welcome to New York City, right? I used to get this doing I still do, doing the back in the day episodes. So I wasn't trying to fix myself because I wasn't broken. I just had to heal. I just had to feel. I just had to experience pain. I just had to experience deep, gut-wrenching pain that had been piled on and compressed over decades. I hadn't done that. And so it was piled on at least 5 decades thick. So I had no feelings. I had no real emotions. And I still am navigating those waters now. Even when it comes to just loving my wife, when it comes to hugging my wife. Like these things to me, it's like, what the hell? I thought I was just pretty, Dave the lover. No, when I look, no. You know, I've always laughed at myself my entire life. I always have. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I was able to not go off the deep end like some people do. And I laugh at myself because as much as I love life, I've never ever taken life super duper serious, even though I've been through some real serious heavy stuff, right? So I'll dig more into those type of topics moving forward. And as my wife comes on, she'll dig into that stuff too. And I'm just gonna sit there and go, she ain't lying, right? Um, so I was in no condition to set intentions. I was in no condition to fix myself, and there was nothing to fix because I was not broken. I just had to heal. We are not broken. I was in no condition to move ahead and move forward because I did not know where I was going. So why am I going to set an intention? Why am I going to set a goal in a direction where I don't know where I'm going? And I felt one of the worst things I can do in the state that I was in is to set an intention and to set a goal and not know how I really feel and not know how my body was really feeling because I wasn't feeling much of anything. That could make me set a wrong intention and or a wrong goal. So I was just in the mode of being, feeling, living, enjoying my life with no anger, no pain, no trauma, minimized anger, very minimized anger, pain, trauma, stuff like that. I was still dealing with major panic attacks. I was still dealing with great, great discomfort, breathing, burning, whelps, hives, bumps in my head. My body, it was just moving through my whole body, just doing its thing. And it still does to this day, but on a much lower level, right? So to me, intention came out of feeling. My body began to tell me what direction would be best to go in. And it began to happen not in a way where I was like, okay, this is my intention. Okay, this is my goal. No, it just kind of through, for lack of a better word, osmosis. As I began to feel more, as I began to experience this new way of life for myself more, I would begin to set intentions based on my body, based on my feelings. My nervous system was trying to calm down a little bit back in those days where I could feel a little bit of something. If you pinch me, I could say, oh, that hurt, And I was getting more and more in touch with my feelings, with my nervous system. My parasympathetic nervous system was coming on more and more than what it had been over the last 7 to 8 years, right? With that, I began to feel urges in my body. And the best example I can give you is that driving over the GW Bridge, the George Washington Bridge, for those folks who are not in the States and may not know what that bridge is, it's a bridge that's maybe about 400 feet from the front entrance of my door here. And the entrance to that bridge takes you into Fort Lee, New Jersey. I have to go that way every morning, right? But my panic attacks were so strong and so chronic and so severe. Driving over that bridge was not a good experience for me. Breathing, couldn't swallow, choking, gagging, all kind of stuff would go on. So I would avoid that bridge every morning. Every morning I would avoid the bridge. I would take I would go all the way downtown, the west side, well, not even the west side, I couldn't even do the West Side Highway, on Riverside Drive, all the way down to the Holland Tunnel. And those days. And these are very recent days. What I'm explaining now is very, very recent. I'm talking weeks now. Like this is just happening as of last week, week before last. And I would drive by the GW bridge every day and avoid it. And what they say when when you're going through PTSD and panic and stuff, the more you avoid, the worse it'll get. Don't avoid, don't avoid. But I just was in no condition to avoid. I was in no condition to go over the bridge. So I kept avoiding it and going to the Holland Tunnel. I would drive by that bridge every morning and look at all the trucks on that bridge. The speed limit on that bridge is 45 miles an hour. Trucks are flying easily doing 55 and 60 on that bridge, easy. I wasn't trying to hear it. No, I mean 18, 20 wheelers, cars, just people tailgating. It's a mess up on that bridge. And first thing in the morning at 5:30 in the morning, on that bridge, I'm like, nah, man, I can't do that. So I wanted to do it a lot. I knew I could not do it. I kept avoiding it. So this was the first time I think I set an intention. And the intention it wasn't to go over the bridge. I felt that was too much pressure on myself. And even though I'm in this course called the DARE response, which we'll talk about in another episode because DARE is really good to get involved in. I plan to have one of their coaches with me on an episode, Aida. And DARE response says, get out there and don't white knuckle it. Just follow the DARE response, all the steps in the DARE response, and don't white knuckle it. My nervous system was so wrapped up, so damn tight, I couldn't even do the DARE response. I kept avoiding. Okay, trying to make a long story short here. So the choice I made, the intention I made, because I knew I wanted to start driving over that bridge and expand and get out of my comfort zone. It was beginning to frustrate me, but I didn't know how to do it. So the more I began to feel inside, the more I began to feel urges inside and all that kind of stuff, I said, you know what? Let's set the intention to bring down the nervous system more. Let's put the DARE response aside. Let's just don't even bother with it right now. Let's just work at calming the nervous system more and more through meditation, deep relaxation, getting outside in nature, turning off all the screens and all the monitors and everything when it comes to television, computers, my recording. In my recording studio, I have 5 or 6 monitors in my recording studio alone. Okay, so just getting off the monitors to give my brain a chance to calm down and to get the blue screens out to stop the cortisol push and all this kind of stuff. Let's just do that for a period of time and see how you feel. I began studying Tai Chi Chuan and Qigong with my good friend, Dr. Robert Woodbine, and he'll be on an episode as well. He has a lot to share. And I began doing those things. And I began doing that, must have been January of this year, and more so into February of this year. Just meditating, deep relaxation, getting out in nature, going for a walk, all these things, sitting down, just being off the screens, out the studio, no podcast episode, don't record nothing, just cool out. And I began feeling better and better. And I began feeling my nervous system unwind more. I noticed it became noticeable when my shoulders dropped. I used to walk around with my shoulders like this and all of this pinched up here. I could see my shoulders on their own dropping. I'd be in the bed with my wife and say, yo, babe, my shoulders just dropped on their own. She goes, what? I'm like, yo, they just dropped on their own. Like, wow. My jaw was beginning to drop. I used to clench my jaw, or I would do fold my lips in since I was a child, folding in my lips. My jaw began to drop, and then one day my wife was at Qigong lesson, my wife was kind of rubbing my jaw, and the whole jaw said, pop. And she said, what was that? I said, yo, my jaw just popped. She goes, what? I said, yo, my jaw just popped. Like all the tension that was in my jaw popped and released. All the tension that was in my shoulders let go. The pain I was feeling in my shoulder blades and stuff was going away. So all the things that I had set my intentions on, now that I was feeling again, I could make a choice to make an intention and follow through with it, because now I'm feeling I'm doing better inside and all this kind of stuff. What began to happen after that? I'm driving the car, crack of dawn in the morning. I drive by the GW Bridge, and I'm like, no, I'd avoid it and go. Next morning, nope, avoid it, Holland Tunnel. Next morning, ugh, no. And now congestion pricing was hitting. So I was getting nailed, $10 a day congestion pricing. And I was like, oh God, this is freaking not. I gotta start getting over that damn bridge. Like, what the hell, right? Look at the bridge, nope, nope, nope. But then something very cool began to happen. I would drive by the bridge and my body would say, let's go. And I was like, nope. And I'd drive down. The next morning, I'm driving past the bridge, my body would go, nope, drive down. Because now I had developed a fear of my fear, which is not a good place to be at all, right? I was fearing the fear. And I'm like, you got to do it. I was getting these urges inside from my body. Let's go. Let's hit the bridge. Let's do it. You can do it. And I was like, It's my intention to do it. This now to me is where intention comes into play, because I spent that time just being. I spent that time feeling my emotions again. I spent that time just feeling mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually again, where I was able to now say, I want to set an intention. So I didn't do it off the cuff. And now my intention is to go over the George Washington Bridge and, Lord, hopefully not have a massive panic attack like I was having all the time in the previous months and years that I was doing it, right? I go over the bridge again, drive by it again, nope. And my body just urged, like pushing me. Like, if you ever want to see your body do something and you ain't got no control over it, body's going, do it. Brain said, hell no. That shows you how much power your brain actually does have, even though your body is in automatic mode off a lot of the time, right? Body's going, let's go. Brain said, hell no. Next morning, body's going, let's go. Brain said, hell no. So what I did to help the intention, to help move my intention forward now, because now I'm in intention mode. I want to do this. I think I'm ready to do this. It is now my intention to go over the GW Bridge into New Jersey. So what did I do? At our next Qigong lesson, Tai Chi Chuan lesson, Maggie was with me. I said, babe, I'm going to use you as a crutch. Let's go to class. After class, let's go to Whole Foods in Edgewater, New Jersey, which is the next town south of Fort Lee, New Jersey. Right over the bridge, go down. It's maybe about 3 miles, 4 miles from the house here. Okay, I'm going. She says, okay, no problem. My wife has total confidence. In my condition, my wife has total confidence with me behind the wheel. She still feels 100% totally safe with me driving the car behind the wheel. I am that good of a driver. Hey, okay, and that really makes me feel good when she says those things to me. I said, well, I'm going to use it as a crutch. She said, okay. So now we're on the West Side Highway. I had conquered the West Side Highway. So I'm coming home, and there's an entrance ramp from the West Side Highway up and swerve around onto the bridge, onto the western side of the bridge, go over to Jersey. I was too scared to go that way. I'm like, these ramps and stuff, no. So I got off on our exit, 178th Street, crossed over Fort Washington, took it down the Broadway, made a left on Broadway, made another left on the 179th Street, and came up to the entrance that way, which gave me time, because I was in such anxiety and panic mode, knowing that it's David, at this point, it's either shit or get off the pot. and I was stalling it. I was stalling it big time. And she didn't say, my wife was cool. She didn't say nothing. She thought I was going home, actually. She thought I was going back home because, like I said, the bridge, I can walk to the bridge entrance in 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes from the front door of our apartment here. But I said, nope, went down Broadway, back up 179th Street. The light turned red, thank God. I could just sit there and just take a few breaths. And either I'm going to make that right turn and go home and park this car, or I'm going to go over that bridge. It was the moment of truth. I went over the damn bridge. And to my surprise, it almost felt normal. it almost felt how I used to drive over that bridge 3 and 4, 5, 6, 7 times a year when I was having no panic attacks and no PTSD symptoms and nothing. It felt like, wow, okay, little wonky here and there, but overall, cool. Little anxious, but overall cool. I got off, we went to a little park and hung out in the park, went to Whole Foods, and then came back home. So I used Maggie as a crutch to do that, which is not the first time. So she knows, she's cool with it. But the real test for me and this intention, which I knew, was to now go over the bridge by myself at 5:30 in the morning when cortisol and adrenaline is at a high point because it's early morning. And when those trucks are out there, when all those truckers are out there on that bridge, leaving Manhattan and taking their deliveries wherever they got to go around the country or whatever they're doing, they're all out there doing 55 and 60 on a 45 mile per hour bridge. Can I do this now without my wife in the car under these conditions? I was scared shitless. But I got to that red light right before the right turn onto the bridge, and I said, hit it. I hit my blinker to make a right-hand turn. And when I hit that blinker, everything in me just snapped. And I was like, I got this. I hit the bridge, went over the bridge that morning by myself in all those conditions, trucks tailgating me, trucks flying by me, 18-wheelers storming by me, tailgating me, cars weaving back and forth. And I'm just moseying along. I'm like, okay, just exhale, breathe, do what you know. Now do the dare response. Just breathe, take it, chill, take a minute. I got over it. My goal, so then I set my next intention. My next intention was to go over this bridge every single day of the week. And this was last week. And like I said, today is April 29th. So this was actually, this started last week, Monday, and now we're here at April 29th, which is Tuesday. Last week, I went over that bridge every single morning. And thus far this week, I've gone over the bridge every single morning. I set my intention, and my intention was to go over the bridge. I focused on that, and I set a goal. And my goal was to go over the bridge every morning last week. And I did. And every day that I went over the bridge, from that Monday, since this last week Monday, every day I go over the bridge, it feels better and better and better because my brain is now drawing new neural pathways and locking in the new things. Oh, okay. And what I do now when I go over the bridge, I make it a point to remember how I felt when I wasn't dealing with any PTSD symptoms. And I would go over this bridge and be like those other cars, flying, swerving in between cars and trucks and carrying on that bridge and doing all that kind of stuff as well, and I think about that to give my brain and my nervous system flashbacks of how we used to go over that bridge for decades, up until several years ago, for decades, to help cement and to help firm up in my brain, hey, we're here, we're doing this, it's all good. We're doing this from now on. So let me just kind of wrap this up a little. I don't want to get too long with this. Let me just wrap it up a little bit. So that's intention to me. Now, everybody has their own idea, their own ways, their own thoughts about intention. Some people just say, set your intention, set your intention. And it might be different for everybody, but I really wanted to express that my experience with intention for me and what that was like for me. And I could not make an intention. If I was somebody that was depressed and then I did work to pull myself out of my depression, however I did it, and I'm feeling hollow inside, I just want to live a little bit because it just feels so damn good to not be depressed. Or if you're someone like me who has CPTSD and you're like this high functioning person, but you have chronic high red alert anxiety and your your parasympathetic nervous system on switch doesn't shut off, yo, when you get that bad boy to calm down some, you don't want to do nothing other than just enjoy feeling good for several months, because it's been years that you felt like crap. So you want to just feel good for a minute. So I would just say, whatever you're going through, wherever you are in your process of feeling better and or healing, feel it first. The old buzzword now is you have to feel it to heal it. And I have to agree with that. You have to feel it. And then once you feel stuff, and once you just be and just live for a moment, then begin to think about what intentions work. Then listen to your body at that point. Listen to your body and see what it needs. And then what it might need at that moment, set the intention for that. And then set your goals based on that as well. All right. So I would say initially, once you have a release of some level or work on bringing it down, I would then say just feel your body. Once you've dropped back into your body, feel your body by just being and just by living and experiencing being back in your body, and just enjoy that. And then once your body, just really listen and pay attention to your body. And when it begins to give you signals to do things, follow through as best you can. And you may not always be able to do that initially, because I wasn't. Because when my body was saying, get on that bridge, I was like, oh, hell no. Get on the bridge. Oh, hell no. Get on the bridge. I said, hell no. Okay? But there should be a point where you get yourself to a point where you can say, okay, let me do this. Let me set this intention. Let me set this goal. I think I'm there now. I think I'm there now. Okay? So that's my intention. The next step is, the next episode is going to be about beliefs. Beliefs are really important, because if you don't believe that you can heal, if you don't even believe that you can wake up or that you're even asleep, if you have no beliefs about this stuff, about anything, about your scenario, about your situation, I don't want to say condition, because these aren't conditions. If you don't believe, then you're pretty much dead in the water. You can have all the intention in the world. You can be awake as you want to be. You can have all the intention in the world. But if you don't believe that stuff, if you don't believe in much of anything of that stuff, then it's game over until you have some type of belief system. All right? That's going to be the next episode. It's going to be belief. Until then, go to the website, look at the resource page. I got tons of resources that I've been using over the years now, books and podcast episodes and different podcast providers that I listen to that I love. Check them out. The resources, some of the books I got into, the body book, the Buddha book, Back in Control, all these books. And we'll get into that stuff a lot more in some of the other episodes. In this episode, I just really want to focus on getting started, the 4 steps that I feel that everybody might want to consider, adopting on some level for themselves to just get started. And that is awareness, intention, beliefs, and actions. So that's what's going to be beliefs. Until then, as my grandmother would say, keep on living. Night out.